good, y'all. So in this video, I'm gonna be reacting to MrBallen. Fuck. I know the title. Hold on. Stories that don't sound real, but they're true. Something like that. I don't remember. I'll probably just link the description. Link the video in the description so y'all can go find the actual video. You feel me? Anyways, like usual, I'm going to be doing one of these stories, and I'll probably finish the video at a later date, but I have some other reactions that are pretty long, so, didn't want to overwhelm myself. But anyways, I just woke up. I look crazy. It's cool. Let's get into the video.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and today we're going to look at 3 stories that demonstrate that. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place.
Subscribe, y'all. I'm subscribed. The fuck? Fucking fan. Drink your water. The dark room. Let's get into it.
Carlos Camejo woke up freezing cold and totally confused. It was September 6th, 2007, and all Carlos could remember was being on his motorcycle with the hot sun bearing down on him as he wound his way on his bike through the streets of La Victoria, which is a city in Venezuela. Carlos tried to open his eyes, but he couldn't, and then when he tried to move his body, he couldn't do that either. And so he began to panic because he's paralyzed, but he told himself
maybe
to calm
he has
down.
sleep paralysis.
If he couldn't move, at least he could think. He could try to process, what's going on here. There has to be an explanation for it. And so Carlos, in total darkness and immobile, began going through over and over again this whole motorcycle trip, which was his last memory. And he remembered that his friend had called him up and asked him to go out on this ride. Carlos used to go out all the time on his bike for fun with his friends and by himself, but now that he was 33 years old and married, he didn't have the time for it as much. But the weather had been so beautiful that when his friend had called and asked to go out, Carlos said, "Let's do it." And so Carlos began going over in his head the route that they had taken through La Victoria, and all he could remember...
That's how Puerto Rico kind of looks. It's like a historical mixed with modern. Probably to me, because I don't see shit like that in Virginia. I don't see shit like that here. But shit, even going to, like, my mom's from Washington, D.C., and my dad's from New York. So going there, and I don't see stuff like this per se. It's just that I like it. I fuck with it. I don't know how to explain it though. My brother would hate me or be so mad because he's an architect. So.
Was this
long
straightaway and then a right turn and then nothing. It was like after he made that turn, everything went blank. And as Carlos thought about how weird it was that 1, he was paralyzed, and 2, he had no memory of what happened after he made that right turn, he started to realize that he felt something against his back. It was like there was a block underneath his back, kind of right between his shoulder blades.
He was outside.
His chest up, and he felt his arms kind of dangling down by the side, and it was very uncomfortable. And as he laid in this totally awkward position, he began to hear somewhere out in the ether unfamiliar voices just kind of chatting, and immediately Carlos is like, okay, someone's here to help me. I don't know what's wrong with me, but somebody's here, I'm gonna be okay. And soon, whoever was talking near Carlos had moved closer to him, and actually Carlos began to realize that it was actually more than one person. It was at least 2 people talking back and forth, but again, Carlos can't open his eyes, he can't move, he can't communicate with these people.
His eyes is weird.
He just knows they've come closer to him. And after these people had moved right up against Carlos, Carlos suddenly felt something metal pressing up against his chin. And it was kind of sharp, and it kind of hurt when it touched his chin. And Carlos wanted to scream out and tell them whatever they were doing to stop and at least tell him what was going on, but Carlos couldn't make a sound. And then Carlos began to hear this kind of mechanical whirring sound, like a machine starting up that was very close to where he was. And suddenly Carlos began panicking, like, what's going on? What are they doing to me? And as Carlos's heart rate is starting to speed up, one of the people who had moved near Carlos suddenly said, "Oh my God, that's impossible. This can't be." And then again, Carlos felt more pain in his chin. And then the pain got dramatically worse. It went from just kind of like a poking feeling to something going into his chin, and he felt it moving underneath his skin like a knife cutting through him, and then whatever it was, it went out of his chin. And as this is happening, Carlos is trying so hard to just wake himself up and do something to tell these people to stop, but he just couldn't do it. And then again,
Wait! I want to predict. Even though every time I'm usually wrong. But I feel like he was in between consciousness. Consciousness. Not consciousness, because don't try to play me and be like, she can't talk. I mean, consciousness. I'm not talking about consciousness. Like, he's like like in between his consciousness. But I feel like he's in between death and alive. And he's just chilling. But he can't wake himself up. But he's alive, but dead. Just shut up.
Felt that sharp pain in his chin. Another round of something going into him, moving underneath his skin and then poking out again. And the pain became so blinding that suddenly Carlos was able to kind of break through this paralysis and his eyes shot open.
See? He was in between consciousness and consciousness. Fuck it.
Open. And for a second, all Carlos could see was like blinding lights. But then as things came into focus, he saw there were two people, the people who had been speaking, wearing these huge goggles and face masks. And one of them was
He was in
holding
the hospital.
a big needle with black thread attached to it. And that thread was coming from Carlos's chin.
This
They had been
man
running that
anesthesia
needle through
done
his
wore
face,
off.
stitching his chin for some reason, but with no anesthetic. And so as Carlos is staring up at these people in goggles, the people in goggles are looking down at Carlos and they're totally horrified and they just kind of begin backing up, not really sure what to make of this. And then Carlos, again, kind of breaking through this weird paralysis he was under, he was able to lift his head up and look down at his body. And he saw, to his horror, that he was totally nude. He was laying on a metal table, and there was this Y drawn on his chest, starting at his collarbones, coming down right underneath his throat, and then straight down across his chest. And then after Carlos saw this Y on his naked body, he looked over at a tray that was right
These
next to
mofos was cutting his body off. That's crazy.
this metal table near these two guys in goggles who were now kind of backing up, and he saw there was a whirring instrument on this table, and it was a circular blade, a saw. That was the sound he heard, and that's when Carlos figured it out. Earlier that day, when Carlos had been out riding his motorcycle with his friend, he had gone down that long straightaway in La Victoria. He had made a right turn and parked illegally. Right after this turn was this
Don't park
big truck.
illegally now.
Carlos didn't see it, and at full speed, he impacted the truck. He was thrown from his bike, smashed into the ground, horrific injuries, and when paramedics showed up, they pronounced him dead on the scene. And so he was moved from the scene of the accident to the morgue. And at the morgue, Carlos was stripped naked and put on this metal table, and they placed a block underneath his shoulders, kind of propping his chest up, and they drew a Y down the center of his chest.
How do I get more clues, more and more motherfucking clues, and I'm still wrong? That's crazy though. And I'll say it at the end.
For his autopsy, the two doctors that Carlos ultimately saw chatting and performing this autopsy were going to follow that Y on his body with the circular saw. That's
To
how
take
they
his
cut you
organs
open
out.
during an autopsy. But right before they were about to do that, the doctors noticed that Carlos was actively bleeding from his chin. And since he was supposed to be dead, that didn't make any sense. And so that was why one of the doctors had said, oh my goodness, this can't be. And so not really sure what to make of it, they had just grabbed a needle and begun stitching his face together to stop the blood from going down his chest. And then Carlos opened his eyes, and it dawned on the two doctors that, oh, he's alive. That's why he's still bleeding. We should definitely take care of him now. But amazingly, after Carlos came back from the dead, he was simply moved into the hallway and left on this metal table, and the doctors who were going to perform his autopsy just left the paper that said he needed an autopsy in his pocket, just kind of showing that, hey, we were just following orders. Somebody told us to give you an autopsy. This is not our fault. And that's where Carlos stayed until his wife showed up and found him in the hallway just laying there as if he was still just waiting for his autopsy. Carlos would suffer horrible injuries from the accident and serious emotional trauma from almost being cut open during this autopsy, but he would make a full recovery.
See, this is what I was going to say. I've watched a lot of MrBallen stories, and it seems like this is an issue that happens a lot when mofos is buried alive and giving funerals. The whole time these people are like living. You feel me? Like, I think we need to work on this because obviously this is happening too much. I don't know the criteria of what, like, you're pronounced dead. Because is it just no heartbeat? Because that can happen. Like, that can happen. I don't know. I just feel like it needs to be more in depth. It needs to be checking up multiple times. Not like, hey, this mofo dead. Not breathing, not nothing. We about to cut him open in 20 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a little, I don't know. I think you should give the body time. It's completely wrong, though. I mean, I was kind of right. Kind of. Like, woke up from the dead consciousnesses. Whatever. But yeah, this is crazy. I don't like shit like this because it's not, it's different when I hear a story of his and it's kind of like a big ass monster in the middle of the woods chasing mofos, because at the end of the day, yes, me, I probably am going to still believe it, but I know that that is more of a, like a, like a far-fetched thing to happen to me, because I'm not going to be in the damn woods. I'm not going. There's nothing there for me. I would like to go on open nature walks where there's, you know, mofos can see. Nina just went right there. She went right there. You know what I'm saying? And that I can see everything that's around me. I don't gotta get lost to say, was this the tree? Or did we turn left at that other tree? The tree we lost? How the fuck we get out this? You feel me? I don't want to do none of that. So I prefer open types of nature where I can see everything that's going on, know where to go, all of that. So yeah, but this kind of stuff, this could happen to anybody. You could get in a car accident and they think you're dead, you're not, and all of this traumatic shit happened to you. So no, I'm not really fucking with it. But if this was number one, I mean, if this was the third, like, because I feel like he does them in order of like least shocking to most shocking. This was pretty shocking. So I wonder what's next. Anyways, we'll get through that. Probably end of this week, beginning of next week, I'll finish this video. So anyways, y'all like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok. I'll see you on the next one.